Hello, welcome to today's edition of Pegasus Test. On today's edition, we're going to be reviewing Stage 10 of Red Oktober 2018, Vietnam. So Stage 10 was a good, well thought out stage. What you had to do, your starting position was holding an old GI M1 helmet from the Vietnam era, and it was attached to a booby trap, which was really just a blank 12 gauge shotgun shell. You pulled the booby trap, then you jumped into a tunnel. Halfway through this tunnel, you had your rifle pre-positioned and you could start engaging targets from the open areas. You came out of the tunnel and there was a gap before another tunnel started. You popped up, like say a VC popping up out of a spider hole, engaged 4 targets at the end of the bay. Then you went back into the tunnel, and at the end of the tunnel you had targets on your left, targets on your right, and then a swinger out in front that you had to activate as soon as you got to the end of the tunnel. This was really challenging. You're in this tunnel, but the tunnel consists of boards laid over where you're crawling like slats. And we'll show you a little detail closer up here later in the video. But under the slats was a line. If you bumped these slats and exposed the line, that was a 5-second penalty. So this stage had the potential to rack up penalties like nobody's business. And you get a failure to neutralize, failure to engage. You could have one heck of a time on this in the blink of an eye and not even realize it. As the stage progressed and I was waiting my turn to shoot, I'm watching all these guys go through, doing good times, getting good hits on their targets, and then all of a sudden the feedback you get is, well, you moved so many boards, so you've racked up so many points in penalties. So some good times went down pretty fast just because those little light boards were a whole lot easier to move without realizing it than you thought. So since moving each slat was a 5-second penalty, and I was watching people rack up penalties like nobody's business as I was waiting my turn to shoot the stage, I went very conservative. I practically low crawled through at some points, making sure I did everything I could not to get anywhere near those slats. And while it resulted in a clean run, no penalties at all, it also resulted in a slower time. I came in at about 46 seconds, which when the final results were posted, that put me right squared, that smack dab in the middle of people who ran the stage. Of the guys I shot with, they generally ran it about 10 seconds faster. Some of them encountered penalties, some didn't, but it just shows that sometimes getting inside your own head can have a detrimental effect to you. Now, just like in every other video in the series here, here's our walkthrough from the Friday before the match.
I'll see you before you go.
Go through the tunnel there, Matt.
Go through the tunnel. I'll go through the tunnel.
Simulate. I wouldn't pull it just in case.
Oh no, it's right here.
Oh, okay.
Stand up. Yoink.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh shit, 5, 6, 7. You know what?
Okay, that was the walkthrough. Now here's my run on Stage 10.
Are you ready?
One hit on the gun.
Stand by.
Kind of thing. As with other videos in this series, I'd like to show you the GoPro now, but I can't. And I can't even blame this on the camera gremlins that so affected us this day. No, I have no GoPro video for my run because I forgot to turn the camera on. Yeah.
So that's on me. However, we do have some GoPro footage for you. Another member of our squad was doing the match with a GoPro attached to his AK. So we have that footage for you, which is good because it presents a pretty unique view of this stage. So take a look here.
Are you ready? Ready. Stand by. Watch your head. You're finished. Unload. Show me clear. Clear. Yep. Give it to me. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Now here's a close-up of the slats on the tunnel that if you moved, it made a penalty. You had to expose the line that you see. If you didn't expose the line but you moved the slat, they didn't count it against you. But these 2x2s were so light that barely any pressure on them got them to move pretty good. Stage 10 was a really fun stage, as I said at the beginning. I like the fact that you were simulating acting out as a VC, setting off a booby trap, crawling through a tunnel, popping out of a spider hole, engaging through little loopholes. I mean, it was a really, really good stage, really challenging, very much shows it was trying to enact a faithful historical incident. I mean, probably the funnest stage of the whole match, in my opinion. And a true test of skills. You had to be in awkward shooting positions the whole time. You had to be very careful about what you touched, or you could rack up a penalty, kind of like in real life, touching something could be a booby trap. So, well thought out stage. Hope they have this type of tunnel involved in future matches. In conclusion, Red Oktober 2018 was a really fun match. It was 10 stages, and you know, it took 2 days to do. We got through it in about a day and a half. It was done with open squatting, which I had never encountered before, and with time to think about it now that the match is over, it's not a bad system. It would be a system that may not work in every match, but it really worked here because it gave you the ability to choose what you wanted to do. They also had plenty of people on each stage to reset the stage. It was not a requirement of the shooter that, okay, do your run, put your gear down, and then stick around and help reset the stage as other shooters go through. Which, while I feel there's nothing wrong with that, at the same token, having dedicated people whose that's their job, that worked out pretty good. It also gave you the ability, when there was downtime between your shooting, you could go visit vendor booths, and there was a lot of vendors there. They were marketing their wares. You could fire some full auto, you could fire some suppressed guns. There's one vendor, if you fired a sequence using their magazine, they'd give you a free magazine. I mean, it was some pretty good stuff. And you got to see some stuff you would not normally see or have access to. I highly suggest, if you ever get the chance to go out and do it, that you do. It was a true test of your skills using a rifle that, quite frankly, is not up to the capabilities of your AR that you're used to. The open leaf sighting system made each target presentation a challenge. You did not engage them as quickly target to target as you would with your AR. And, you know, it's just something different that you don't do every day. Even if you go shoot matches every month, you don't do it with an AK all the time. The stage was innovative, or I should say these stages were innovative. On the Golan Heights, dropping a simulator down a mortar tube, you don't do that at every match. Is it essential to the match? No, but it definitely added a scene of realism to it and made it a much more interesting stage. When you went to stage 2, Kurdistan, you fired from the back of a technical. Now, it wasn't a real machine gun and you only fired a couple shots and stuff, but it's from a vehicle, which caused you to do some dynamic movement and thinking about what you're doing. I hope in future Red Octobers they will have more vehicle type stages like that. World Shoot, it was deceptively hard. If that was a stage you shot with your AR, shooting 8 poppers, move and shoot 8 poppers, you can do that no problem, especially if you have any type of optic on your AR. That would not be a challenge. Over the leaf sights of an AK or the aperture sights of a Golani like I shot, well, it's a little bit more challenging to say the least. And people's times reflected it. You know, you see times here that people shot that
You know, if that had been an AR, you could cut those in half in some cases. Over on stage 4, the curse stage, the planks that they used you had to fire from, that was an innovative way to do it, and it forced movement. You couldn't just run or go wherever you wanted to go. You had to be on these planks, and when you were on these planks, no matter where you stood, you couldn't see all the targets. You had to move around. And you had to think about reloading because there were more targets with more required hits than one magazine would allow. And if anything, overall, this is the only stage that required a mandatory magazine change due to the amount of rounds you had to fire. I'd like to see more stages next year that force a mag change somehow, even if it's through artificially low limits, like we're on the next stage, stage 5, is Chef's Arsenal. You had to be working the press, which was to simulate working a machine while fascist hordes were attacking your factory. You retrieved a weapon, then you retrieved magazines that you had pre-placed around the stage. You know, that was a great idea. Those magazines were limited to 10 rounds, also forcing you to do some strategy. And some of the strategies people employed on this was to use their 10 rounds on the target arrays that they saw, but on the last target only engage with 1 round and pray for that A-zone hit, so when they did their reload, they could just keep shooting on the next array without having to rack their bolt on their AK. And the fact that you ended it off with a swinger with plenty of rounds to engage it just shows some pretty thoughtful stage consideration. I mean, the target wasn't that far away. You activated it before you started shooting, so it had lost a lot of momentum. But when you got there, you had 6 rounds that you had to do it with. Not bad. Good stage design. Over on stage 6, even though it was a disaster for me, great little CQB simulation. Once again, as I've reviewed video and I've seen other people's videos that they've posted, I could have strategized that one a little better because even though I had a pretty good time, I could have been better now that I see better ways to do it. Stage 7, where they had the use of a mock-up of an Amtrak or APC, yeah, great. It's one of those things you got to bear in mind. There are match rules that don't exactly match up with real-world training. Something you got to keep aware of and keep in mind. But overall, a good stage. Engaging from the vehicle was neat. I wish the firing ports were a little deeper in the vehicle to force you to be completely in, because in some stages guys were able to just lean in and get to those ports without actually entering the vehicle. But hey, that's a lesson learned for the future. The Afghanistan stage, that was neat. Hilltop to hilltop shooting, a nice, good challenging. The targets were the right size. They were at a good distance. The good stage. Stage 9, Nicaragua, didn't do much for me, got to admit. I like the target presentation, but the manually load your magazine thing, it's like, I don't see the skill you get from it. It just seemed like a time waster and stuff. Yeah, I wish I'd have shot that stage differently, just trusting my abilities through 1 round for each target into the mag and just gone with it. Would have took a big chunk of time off my overall score, but hey, such is life, lesson learned. And the last stage, Vietnam. You know, as I've just talked about earlier in the video, very innovative, very good use of props. And also, it allowed you to get a tunnel experience, but allowed the ROs to have a good visual sight of the competitor to check that they were safe and that things were going the way they should and that the competitor wasn't running into trouble. It's a great idea, and that's a stage I'd like to see a lot of other match designers incorporate in. That was really good. Overall, Red Oktober was awesome. The St. George Southern Utah Practical Shooters Center is a great place. They hold a lot of matches around the year. I'm intending to go to Desert Brutality next year, which I found out is going to be held in the same place. And with the amount of bays they have available and the sheer size of the place, it'll be a good match. I just know it will. Now, there were a few downsides to this. This was my first Red Oktober, but years previously I'd watched on YouTube people compete, and you know, I was excited to go because of that. And one of the things that wasn't there was the trench. I'd seen that in years past. I'd seen it in other competitions that have been held at SUPs, and they've gotten rid of the trench for whatever reason. And well, that's their choice, they can do it, but I wish it was still there. I was really excited about looking forward to that. Also, I noticed this year that there were different target presentations than previous years, which is to be expected, and there's nothing wrong with that. But happily, I didn't have to encounter a spinner. I'm not a fan of those. Well, it's because I suck at them, not because they're bad targets. Didn't encounter any stars, didn't encounter any limited exposure targets.
that you had seen in previous Red Octobers. But that's cool. That means they'll probably bring it back next year, or they were just taking it out of the rotation because they knew that's what people expected. Either way, super awesome match. It's a chance to get your AK out and put it through your paces. One general observation of mine about the competitors here is when I looked at the match breakdown, most people were in open class, a significant amount of people were in armored class, and that means most people could use some kind of optic on their AK. Myself and the group I shot with, we chose to go with iron sights. Me using Galani, which I admit has better sights than your average AK, and the rest of the guys using the standard AK issue sights. And I think that's the true spirit of this match. I think this is a match that if you go optics, while they definitely enhance your abilities and increase your speed and definitely improve your score, no doubt about it and stuff, I think the intent of this match is to celebrate the AK in its purest form. So I encourage anybody that shoots this in the future, just do it with the open sights on your AK. Yeah, they suck. They're nothing really more than glorified pistol sights. But the designers of the match are pretty thoughtful, and they don't give you any targets to engage that are out of the range of what your AK can do. I don't think I saw a target presentation that hit 200 meters. I think someone said the farthest one was 180. It was well within most people's capability. It was definitely well within the rifle's capability to do so. So go to Red Oktober if you get the chance. We hope you enjoyed watching the Red Oktober series here on Pegasus Test. Please comment, like, and subscribe, and tune in for future match videos.